Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at 1995-96 Flair basketball cards. I'm going to focus on just one set because there's a fair amount to talk about with this, and this is a really strange set. This was the year when technology like Photoshop was just becoming a popular thing. It was becoming mainstream, and the world of digital art was really growing and was fascinating. And Flair was already starting to explore this with some of their inserts. And this was the year where they just lost their head and went with a really creative approach. And I say creative with a tremendous amount of charity, because this is among the worst Flair cards ever. What they did was they came up with the idea of doing different designs for every single division. So in the NFL, there were 6 divisions, and so they did 6 different card designs where every division had a different card design. And in basketball, same thing. They had 4 divisions, and so they did 4 different kinds of card designs. So every team in the Atlantic Division, the cards all look the same: the Central, Midwest, and the Pacific. And I'll start off with the Central here, where the cards were designed with a cutout shot of the player. Everyone had a cutout shot of the player. And then there was, over the background, there was a basketball print, and then these big boxes of color spread out all over. And that changed from card to card. And then down at the bottom, they have some little lines that connect these little boxes of text. And the text is all in silver foil, and they actually have the diagnostic information about the player: height, weight, all that stuff. They have that right on the front, which is a weird thing that they did. Unfortunately, these cards are extremely busy, and it can be difficult to see the player for all the background. And like I said, every single team in the Central Division had this. So when you spread it out, you can see how all the teams are patterned together. And if you broke the set down based upon division, so all the divisions were together, it actually almost flowed. There was at least some consistency between the different teams, and so that kind of read. But this was Atlanta through Washington, and so you were jumping around one to another, and so it really didn't help things that they were so patchy. When you look at the Atlantic, you're really able to see that this division's card is really horrible. I mean, truly horrible. You have the cutout shot of the player, but then you have a tight shot that is very artistically stylized, and it is a big mess. It is overpowering. Some of the cards in this division, some of them kind of work, but it's very rare that any of these cards actually do work. There's too much concept in this and not enough design. These don't read well at all. Even worse, all the gold foil, it's all scattered around. You can't read any of it. And then with the Midwest division was a little bit better. Here they have a big color pattern over the background, and then they have some, it looks like drawn in basketballs kind of scattered around, so it's weird. It's like someone's kid drew it. I don't know why they did it. They did have little ovals with text, and in that text was all the diagnostic information. This was actually an improvement because there was almost no gold foil on the front, you could read things. But also, they actually packaged it in kind of a consistent pattern, which helped out a bit. I'm not saying it saved the card. It's still not very good at all. But at least there's some order to it, and the cards don't look terrible. They just don't look even okay. But it's really in the Pacific Division. This is the one where they succeeded, and they didn't just succeed. I think that they really pulled off a good card design. Here they went very simple. They just went with 2 panels. One panel has a very tight shot of the player, and then the other panel, it has the background, but it has all of these kind of streaks over the top of it that are, all in team color, and the streaks create a really wonderful, consistent pattern that reads beautifully. This is where I think if they had done the whole set like this, I think it'd been a pretty decent set. Now, ironically, they still have the diagnostic information in silver foil, but it goes right down the line and it disappears. It's more like a pattern, like a bunch of little silver foil hatch marks. That's kind of the way that it looks. So you don't even know that it's supposed to be the diagnostic information. But overall, I do like these cards. I don't think that they're the most successful card design ever, by a long shot. But for what they did here, this is a surprisingly successful card. And I really do wish that they'd just done the whole set this way, because it would have been a pretty good set. Now, the card backs are all lousy. They're all done in the same way. They're not good. But at least with these cards fronts, they do look pretty decent. Now, in Series 2, they here you get to see some actual good card designs, starting off with the expansion teams. So there were two expansion teams here in 95-96. One of them was the Toronto Raptors, the other was the Vancouver Grizzlies. And they have a big color pattern on the back, kind of tear marks, stuff like that. The strength about this is really the team colors. So with the Vancouver Grizzlies, they used kind of a light, not quite a teal, but they had some light colors. And then with the Raptors, they had a deep, rich purple. And those colors worked really good as a backdrop behind the players. So these cards do a great job of framing the player, and they have a really soothing quality to the color. And it's more simplistic because of the fact they did just one pattern on the back that was really consistent. And so I really like that. When you turn it over, they had just an image on one side, a panel on the other with some text. And look at this, the diagnostic information is on the back. Was that so hard? Look how good this works. Why is this that this is the only place in the set where they did this? So these cards were really good. And they followed that with another really good subset, which was their rookies. Now, true, these aren't truly subsets, but they kind of work that way. And with the rookie cards, what makes this really strong is the really deep, rich colors of the backdrop, so that it's almost like, it's not black, but it has that kind of quality to it, so that the player actually kind of stands out. And then the gold foil for all the text, including the diagnostic information, it's almost like a pattern on the front that works with it to kind of showcase the player. So these are really good looking rookie cards. They're not great rookie cards, but they're really, really good rookie cards for a great rookie class. And it's a good combination they have. So that's an area of success for this set. And again, there wasn't a lot of success with the set, so this was a really surprising positive. And then they closed the set out with their Firm Foundation set. This subset is basically stars of every team. And here they got into a really heavy Photoshop approach where they have a couple of different panels. They have a basketball on one side, a tight shot of the player on another side. Down below, they have some text over some fading colors and stuff. It's really busy. The player kind of gets lost, but there's a richness to it. It reads in an ironically semi-okay way. So, and when you put them onto a page, the players actually kind of stand out a little bit more because you see the patterns and then you see the players from it. So it's not terrible, it's not great, but these are kind of like fun subset cards. And this is where subset cards really do get to be kind of fun, where they throw some stuff in there that's kind of interesting, kind of quirky. So this was pretty good. Now, they did do a lot of inserts, so we're going to be getting into quite a few, but I'm going to start off with a 1 per pack insert that they did in Series 1, which was a Flair preview set. They didn't need to do this because they'd already done a 2-series Flair set the year before, but they did do this set of hardwood leaders, and this is the star of each team. And there were only 27 teams in Series 1, and each one of these cards is a really rich card. It's a high gloss, it's the thickness of Flair, of course, and the wood paneling on the outside does a great job of framing. Now the player can kind of get lost in the key, the color in the key, but for the most part, the player is so well framed from all of the wood grain on the outside, the gold foil, the way that it reads, it is a very successful card. And Flair did know how to make some good cards, and here this was actually one of the best Flair card designs that they ever did. And it's really nice the fact that these cards were so common that you could get a box and basically get a complete set. So this is one of those Flair sets that's easy to access and it looks gorgeous. So it's an awesome thing that they did in the Flair packs. And like I said, it was 1 per pack, so they're really easy to get your hands on. And then as far as the actual inserts go, they did their All-Star set. Every year they did All-Star cards, and this tended to be the highlight or among the highlights of their cards. And this set is very much an heir to that. It's kind of a weird card in a way. It's a high gloss card, and it has a full bleed shot of the player, but the background is either green for the East Coast, which is on the front, or on the back, the West Coast teams have a purple background. And those are the colors of the whole motif of this Phoenix area All-Star game. So the fun thing about the cards is, they have a little bit of gold foil, not much, it's just like a little accent, but it's a very focused shot of each player, and they're pretty well showcased because of the coloration in the background. But it's like having 2 card fronts. You just flip it around, you don't have any of the text and stats, they didn't bother with that. So every card does have the ability to be a double card. So yeah, I love what they did here with this, and I think that it's a really good next step in this tradition. They also did double doubles cards, and these are two thin shots of each player. There's a team color fade in the middle, and there's the word double double. And what is really difficult to notice is that they actually, in gold foil right down the middle, have the player name. You don't even notice it, but as you move the card around, all of a sudden it just kind of lights up, and it's like a hidden little surprise that you run into. The cards look really nice. They're not completely successful, but again, this was a case where we were getting insert cards constantly in these packs, and so every single one had its own little quirk to it, and this was the quirk with this. It is a very nice card design. They also had end-to-end, and this is a pretty prolific card set. These are horizontal cards, which is pretty unusual for Flair cards. And in the case of this is a card that you need to spend a little bit of time to appreciate. The big pattern on it it overpowers the card, and there's an off-balance quality to the fact they have a pattern on one side and then a dark background of player shot on the other side with the player in the middle. But if you take the time to look at the player shot in the back, the background is so stylized and muted. It's really kind of fuzzy to the point where it works great as a showcase of that shot. And once you start to see the intricacy of it, the card actually looks pretty good. So this is one of those things where, for me, normally I just kind of blow past it. It just doesn't seem to look all that good. But when I spend some time with it, I actually do kind of like it. So yeah, props to them for that. They also had another very prolific insert set. This was Class Encounters, and these are a bunch of young players. This, to me, is like an NBA Hoops set. Every time I look at it, I think it's NBA Hoops, and I have to look and see, oh no, it's a Flair card. It's a big shot on one side, it's a panel on the other side with a bunch of rotating images and some gold foil text here and there. And if you look really closely, you can find the draft pick information is seeding in there almost like an Easter egg. Almost like they put this in there going, one person's going to notice this. And I'm that one person. I spent a lot of time studying this card, and I discovered it. So props to you if you can find that text. It is so buried in this card, you will have absolutely no idea that it's there. That's kind of the problem with the card, is that it's a very simplistic design, but it's very busy in an understated way, which is kind of crazy. But for a card as prolific as this is, it's kind of par for the course. So it works. It's kind of interesting, but it's one of those sets. Like I said, it's a very basic card that you run into all the time, and so it's an easy set to get out of the way. That's about all there really is for this set. Franchise Futures, on the other hand, this is different. This is great. This is etched foil. And the way that Flair like to do etched foil, they like to do basically like little panels. So as you move the card around, parts of the card keep popping up in visibility and disappearing. And with this card down at the bottom, they have some flames, so that's a lot of fun. Up at the top, they have a big basketball motif, and that's more of a consistent appearance, so it doesn't really sparkle. But it's a really good backdrop to it. And then in the text of Franchise Futures, they have little sparkly qualities that pop in there, so it's kind of a fun card to explore. It's not overdone, and that's part of the advantage that the card has. It's well done where it has enough interest, but it is not trying to do too much, so pretty cool. And then for their Rookie Phenom cards, this is also etched foil, but this is done in a different way. This is more intricate in where they did the etched foil, and then the rest of the card has more of a chrome finish to it. It almost does a great job of showcasing the player. It's good enough at showcasing the player that it still does look good, but the player is not a super bold presence on the card. But these cards, pretty rare cards, but these cards are most significant for the fact that they also come with a different version, a hot pack version. So hot packs were something that Flair liked to do in 1994, where you would get an entire pack of just nothing but insert cards. That was it. It was cool. In 95, what they decided to do with hot pack was, instead of doing a pack of just inserts, they did a pack of a set of insert cards. So Rookie Phenoms is a 10-card set, and they would have an entire set of the Rookie Phenoms in one pack. So you open it up, it's all the cards 1 through 10, but with these hot pack cards, the difference is they have a little red foil hot pack logo on each card. And they were about one every other box. They would run into them. And so it is a complete set that is about 3 times as common as the other cards. So these are worth less, but they were a really cool thing to get because they're a full parallel, and you would get them as an individual. If you ran into it, you got the whole set in one pack, so they're really cool. So you have both versions of these cards. Then you have Rookie Sensations, and this is a huge letdown for a set that often was pretty good. Now, sometimes Rookie Sensations would be kind of a dog set. In this case, this is weird because in 93 and 94, Flair did a really simple card design, and in 94, when the rest of the industry went with no borders, they didn't, and they waited until this card to do this as a full bleed card, and yet, ironically, it has this weird thing down in the corner that feels kind of like the card designs of 93, 94, and of 94, 95. It's a dumb thing that they threw in there, and it kind of overpowers the whole card and distracts from it. It has a lot of qualities similar to the 94, 95 Ultra cards, but it doesn't have the elegance those cards kind of had. And especially when you turn it over and you got that big, bold color on the back. These cards, they're not good. I don't like them. Fortunately, their Total D is a very good heir to an insert set. They didn't do all the time, but when they did, this set tended to be really good, and this card is no different. This is a 3/4 bleed, but it's a horizontal oriented card, but they also have a vertically oriented foil, gold foil text that when you turn it horizontally, it works really well, kind of tilted up. So this is a card that is very simple, very subtle, very subdued, but well designed. And the way that the images work, they tended to do a really good job of designing the images into these cards. So this is one of those really great cards where it's kind of sneaky good. You don't really notice it because it's not flashy, but when you spend some time with it, these are nice. Now they also did a Total O set. This was something they didn't do as often as the Total D. The Total O set, it's basically, they have a little bit of chrome on the card. Basically, it's a basketball, chrome basketball and some echoes coming out from it. But this set, another pretty rare set, this set also came with hot pack versions. So you have the main cards and then the hot pack cards in the exact same way as the Rookie Phenoms. They have that little red logo for hot packs down on these. So they come in both versions. And then the last main insert set they did was Tower of Power. They'd been doing this for a while. And these cards, I like these cards a lot. This again uses the etched foil design. And in this case, they have a whole panel on one side with some intricate text, and it's kind of hard to read it. But over on the other side, they have, it's almost like gears. And all of these are very rich and lively and bright and flashy. And as you move the card around, there's a lot going on in the card. It's not overly done. It's actually underdone. And that makes this a card that kind of pulls you in. And it's a lot of fun to explore this card. So it was a really good end to all of these inserts, but it's not the total end to all the inserts because in 1995-96, Flair set up a deal with Jerry Stackhouse to be their spokesman. And they wanted to take advantage of this by making a set of cards for Jerry Stackhouse called Stackhouse Scrapbooks that spans across all of their brands. So it's in Flair, it's in Ultra, it's in Flair, and it's in Metal. And they had a 10-card set, 2 cards from each of the releases. So they had Flair in 95-96, Ultra, Flair, Metal, and Flair in 96-97, which is kind of interesting. So the Flair card for 95-96 is kind of a Photoshop mess, kind of what you would expect. In Ultra, they get more into the images. It's more of a rich design. For Flair, they go with an acetate card that has kind of a spirit of the center spotlight cards. And then with Metal, ironically, they did not go with etched foil. They just went with a chrome-like finish on the card back. And then 96-97 it looks different. But they had that whole set that was, you had to piece it together from different releases, which is a cool thing they did, especially since it actually spanned years. And the only other thing I got to mention is that it's possible that you may run into one of the Stackhouse rookies in one of these sets with a number 1 through 4. This is a Mountain Dew release, and this was for Flair Skybox, both. So Skybox and Flair cards both showed up here. So it's possible you may run into that. I just wanted to mention that. But that's what there is to say about 95-96. I'm going to look at 96-97 in another video. There was enough to talk about here that I think this works pretty well. But 96-97, they were kind of getting back into making a really good card design, which for basketball, that had been kind of a tradition that they'd been able to get away with, which is good. This was a very weird year. And so It's some really good inserts, some good cards in the main set, but also some real dogs. And it's unfortunate how bad some of these cards got. So that's what I've got to say. I hope that you learned something from this. Hope that you will subscribe and check out my other videos. And yeah, thank you very much for watching.